Hey everybody, welcome back to Tech Odyssey. So I'm finally getting around to doing my review of the iPhone XR, or the iPhone XR as I kind of like to call it. I didn't really think that I'd find myself in this predicament because I was very adamant about not getting the iPhone XR, mostly because I think it's ripoff. But I also think that the iPhone XS and the XS Max are also bigger ripoffs because they cost so much money. And it's not that it's not a quality product. It's a very good quality product. It's made very well. It's got great support. The architecture, the software, the design, everything is built from the ground up by Apple. Synergistically, it works so well. And that's one of the things that draws so many people into Apple is their ecosystem, which I'm so tired of hearing that word, but everything just works so well together. You can use iMessage on your MacBook, on your phone, on your iPad. So I think one of the things that really irritated me the most about this phone is the fact that they're trying to sell it as a budget device. It's not a budget device by any stretch of the imagination. It's $750 plus tax if you live in a state that charges sales tax like Texas. So yeah, on $750, you might as well add another $50 on there. You're looking at an $800 phone. And then if you want to finance it through a carrier, you got to pay taxes and usually a down payment up front. So there's also the hefty buy-in whenever it comes to going and picking one up at the store. And then on top of that, you have your monthly payment, and then I got to give T-Mobile credit, and some of the other places they're stretching the payments out to 36 months now. So if you think you want to stick with this phone for 3 years, you can get a little bit cheaper. But yeah, it's just a lot to stomach when you talk about $750 for a phone. And it's gorgeous. It is a beautiful phone. I went ahead and got the coral color because it was the coolest new color I thought this year. I also like the blue one. The yellow one and the white ones are just ugly to me, and I wasn't going to get black. I've had a product red. Product reds look nice, but this coral color really caught my eye. So I'm here to say that I like it, and I like it a lot. Not just the color, but the phone. And the reason I went ahead and got one of these is I work out in the middle of nowhere and I have T-Mobile, and T-Mobile just doesn't work out there. And the only way I can use my phone, or the one that I was using previously, was to use voice over Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi calling. And I was kind of getting tired of that, so I switched my primary phone line, because I carry two phones. I switched my primary phone back to Xfinity Mobile, or whatever they call it, Xfinity Wireless. And I went ahead and I got this. Now, the reason I got this was because I was going to use my Pixel 3 XL and I was going to switch that over, but apparently, newsflash, here's a tip for you: if you're going to switch to Xfinity Wireless, they only let you bring over your own device if it's an iPhone. So even though my Pixel 3 XL is unlocked, technically it'll work with the service because it uses Verizon's towers, they would not let me port it over. So I was like, okay, well, there's no way I'm getting another iPhone XS Max. I just paid my XS Max off, but it wasn't unlocked. I'm still waiting for the ESN to clear. So they had a $200 gift card off on this, so $549 bucks. This is a really, really good $549 phone. I would recommend this phone all day long at $549 bucks. And whenever they talked about making a budget series phone, I thought that's really the amazing price point. If they could get this under 600 bucks, it'll sell like hotcakes. And Apple's always sell anyway, but I think it'll sell really well. Now, I looked at this phone from the perspective when I originally bought it of it's a ripoff because they're charging $999 for the XS, $1099 for the XS Max, and then $749 for this. And $999 and $1099 are just astronomically crazy whenever it comes to phone prices, and no phone is worth that. And especially whenever you know how much they cost them to make. I mean, I think it's around like 400 bucks. So, I mean, I know they got to distribute it, they got to market it, they got to put it in store shelves, they got to put it, I get it, they got to make their dollar, but at the end of the day, people just can't shell out $1,000, $1,100, $1,200 every time a new phone comes out. It's a lot of money. And, if you're tied into a 2-year upgrade cycle, maybe it's a little bit more palatable, but for me, getting these new phones every couple of months, it's a ton of money. So, when I saw this one, and then they finally announced the price at $749, I was like, guys are on one really good prescription medication, because this is a lot of money for this phone, which presumably has less qualities than the flagship phones. So you've got less dust and water resistance, you got a dumbed down resolution, which is essentially the same as the iPhone 8, iPhone 7 resolution, but it's on a 6.1 inch screen. You've got an LCD instead of an OLED. You got different glass on the back and the front from what I can remember. It's got 3 gigabytes of RAM instead of 4. It's got 1 camera instead of 2. It doesn't have force touch, the 3D touch stuff. So I was like, why in the world are they selling this phone for $749? I'm like, okay, well they're selling it for $749 because they want people to buy it. And they released it after they released the XS and the XS Max because, well, they were crazy expensive. And if you release a $1,000, $1,100 phone and also a $700 phone, nobody's going to buy the expensive one. So I could see why they released it later. At least that's why I think so. But then it made me think, if I'm paying this much money and I'm getting all of these better things and the better phones, this is a ripoff at $700. It's really a $500 phone. But thinking about it, this phone is actually the one that's a better deal, and the other ones are insane ripoffs. So the performance is nearly identical. The only thing that you're going to have a hang up on, if you really, really care, and if you really look at stuff, you might notice the resolution. Now, they do a really good job with the LCD panel in here. It's the best looking LCD panel I've ever seen. And Apple has been able to do amazing things with LCD panels and lower resolutions for years. So the LCD, not a problem at all. It looks beautiful, it looks gorgeous. Most of the time, you're not even going to be able to tell the difference. And even if you think you can tell the difference, you might not be able to anyway. But the resolution on it is, just so I can tell you the right numbers, yeah, it's 828 by 1792. It's got 326 pixels per inch. It's not the greatest. I mean, there are other phones out there, 400, 500, tons of PPI. And then you get this, and it's like, really, you can't tell the difference that much. And I'm somebody who really cares about the way my screen looks, the way my phone looks, and the way everything looks on the display. I really don't care that much. If you're using it as a daily driver, I mean, yeah, you're not going to get 1080p, but I mean, arguably we're talking about, instead of 1080p, of 820p, so it's in between 720 and 1080, but it looks perfectly fine, just the way that they fit it to the screen, and the LCD screen, it looks gorgeous. So if you have hangups on that, I really wouldn't worry about it too much. And one of the things that has dawned on me as I've been using this lower resolution phone, the lower resolution phones are usually zoomed in a little bit more. So everything looks a little bit bigger, it's zoomed in a little bit more, and if you go to like a Quad HD display like on the iPhone XS Max or the Note 8, if you're playing on some games and apps, you're so far zoomed out. I mean, you can see everything. It looks beautiful, it's clear, it's crystal clear, it's sharp, the contrast is amazing. But I find myself having to zoom in so I can actually play stuff. Like on Boom Beach, I have to zoom in quite a bit so I can see what I'm doing and to be able to control everything efficiently. So I'm not saying it's ideal. I would prefer that this were a 1080p resolution, but at this 830 or whatever it is, 828p resolution, it's not bad. It looks good. So that's the hang-up number one I had. It does have wireless charging. I'm not a big fan of wireless charging just because I'd rather plug it in and get a much faster charge. And I'm not somebody, I use my phone all the time, so even when I'm at home or I'm somewhere else, it's plugged in. So I kind of schedule my top-offs. The battery life is good. It'll pretty much get you through a day. Well, it'll get a normal person through a day. It won't get me through a day because I kill the sucker by the time 7 or 8 o'clock rolls around, just because I use my phone so heavily. But the battery life is good. It has a 2,942 milliamp battery, rounded up. It's right at about 3,000. And if it were at 2,951, I could say it's at 3,000. You round down, it's 2,900. Either way, tons of milliamps. The battery life is good. The resolution is good. It's got the same A12 processor in it, so it's super powerful. You have no disruption in performance or speed whatsoever. You get the same straight line speed and power that the XS and the XS Max do. And you get the 6.1 inch screen, which I think the 6.1 inch screen is about right. The 6.5 inch screen on the XS Max is a little unwieldy. I mean, it is nice. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's got a gorgeous display on it, but the sucker's heavy and it's big. And I mean, I don't have basketball player hands, but normal size hands. This feels right. It feels good. It feels great without a case on it, but I refuse to carry mine naked, as they call it, without a case. So just get a nice, thin, minimalist, typical TPU case. You're good to go. This is a Spigen one, and I like it a lot. I did a review on it, so you can check that out in my videos. But it's a solid case, and it's good. So what about the phone? Well, it works good, it runs good, it looks gorgeous, and I think it's kind of worth it. I think if you're going to invest yourself, unless you just absolutely have to have that Quad HD resolution that the iPhone XS Max has or the iPhone XS, this is a better bang for your buck. I didn't think twice about picking this up versus picking up the iPhone XS Max. I cringed hard. $1,099 for a phone plus tax. It's like a $1,200 phone. $1,200. You could go out and buy a year-old MacBook Pro. You can get a MacBook for that. You could get a MacBook Air and a $400 or $500 or $400 Android phone for that. So really, it's not at the point where I think we need to be paying top tier. I mean, I got a gaming computer. I got a gaming laptop, and you can get a $500 Android phone for what the iPhone XS Max costs. So no, it's not worth it at all. So thinking about it in retrospect, the thing that I should have been more irritated about was the $1,099, which I had a lot of heartache over, than the $749 iPhone XR. So the XR, it's a really good phone. The performance is there. The camera is good. I know this is probably disappointing to some people. I don't do video editing. I work 5 days a week. The weather right now is just not that great, so I haven't been out and taken any demo shots. I'm hoping to go take some this weekend. I can drop in the drop down later on so you can come back and look at them. I'll have them on my Instagram. So I went out and I took pictures with the Pixel 3 XL, with the OnePlus 6T, with the iPhone XS Max recently, and this one, it takes good pictures. It does. It takes very realistic pictures. One thing that Apple is known for is taking realistic pictures and making the display on the screen look realistic. It doesn't look oversaturated. It doesn't look grainy. They do a really good job of balancing the image quality with the megapixels with the screen resolution. It's all built from the ground up to look good, and it does, and it looks really good. And it takes good pictures. There was an article recently, DxO, I think, actually gave it a higher score for a single camera phone over the Pixel 3, or the 3 XL even, which I have a lot of heartburn over because I don't buy into that. I think the Pixel 3 XL is still a better camera, but we're at the point in time nowadays where they're both amazing cameras. They take such good pictures. You get the, whatchamacallit, the profile picture. You get all the other cool stuff. Portrait mode, there we go. I was looking for that. I keep wanting to profile. Portrait mode is great. It's a good portrait mode, especially for a single lens camera. It looks good, and I don't have any complaints about it whatsoever. So it used to be where there was such a big dividing line between getting a flagship that had a camera, and even back when like the iPhone 4, iPhone 5, iPhone 6, it was like the king of cameras. It was like, if you don't have an iPhone camera, you can tell that you have a crappy Android camera. And nowadays it's like the cameras are so close that really it's kind of apples and oranges. It's like, well, yeah, I like this, or yeah, I like that. It's like one little thing here or there that kind of sets them apart, versus the entire camera's like, okay, this is garbage, and they're trying their heart out, but it's just not there yet. So I like the camera. I like the camera, I like the way that it looks. It's got a solid feel to it. The design's great, the glass back. I mean, everything about it is a solid phone. And if you're looking to upgrade from your iPhone 7, your iPhone 8, even your iPhone 8 Plus or 7 Plus, I would wholeheartedly recommend this phone over the XS or the XS Max. If you want to get a little bit cheaper, I would say the 10. The 10 is still a really good phone, and you can pick it up for $899. They've got some good deals on it. I'm going to pull this out of the way so I can turn my brightness down real quick, so we can actually see what's going on the screen. Alright, so here we go. And one thing that's cool is the background is actually matched to the phone. So I like that a lot. The stock, I don't ever change the backgrounds on my phone. So the only reason this one is different is because I did a factory reset on it. Well, I reset the settings, not a factory reset, because I was having some issues with the notifications, switching from one iPhone to the other. I don't know what the problem was. But either way, got that fixed, and this stock wallpaper actually looks really good. It looks a little dark sometimes. Of course, you've got the notch up top. Face ID works better than ever. I hated Face ID when I first switched over to the iPhone 10, so much so I bought the iPhone 10 and I took it back. And I bought it again like 2 months later, and I used it for like a month, and then I sold it. Just because I really didn't like Face ID at all, and I really didn't like the fact that I was paying $1,000 for a phone. Well, this one, on the other hand, it has all the features of the modern iPhone 10, 10s, and 10s Max, but you're getting it at a better price point, and really, a normal person is not going to be able to tell the difference whatsoever. And this phone is marketed towards normal, average people. It's the iPhone for the common man, and I think that that's a very accurate way to describe it. Even me as a tech and a phone junkie, I like it. So you will notice there's this black border around the edges. The border and the bezel, let me go ahead and take this out of the case so you can get a better look at it. There we go. So you've got that, the bezel that goes all the way around it and flows into the notch up top, which, I mean, is perfectly fine. You kind of get used to it. At first, it looks like you're missing part of the screen, but after a while, your eyes get used to it and you don't even pay attention to it anymore. And that's because this uses the LCD screen instead of the OLED. The OLED screen that the 10, the 10s Max, and the 10s have folds over itself and goes basically edge to edge. So you've got that complete seamless look that doesn't have the bezels. But this, I think, is perfectly fine, and you'll get used to it. It is running iOS 12. iOS 12 has finally made this thing usable. iOS 11 was utterly terrible, and that was like the final nail in the coffin on top of Face ID. When I was using the iPhone 10, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I quit, I give up. This iPhone is dead to me. I actually went and got an 8. I was rocking an iPhone 8 for the longest time. I got rid of my 10, I went to the 8, the product read, it was gorgeous looking, and I enjoyed it. So my overall impressions of this phone are, if you want a new iPhone and you don't want to spend the money, you're not missing out if you get this phone. You're not missing out at all. In fact, I'd say you're winning, and the people that are paying $1,000, $1,100, $1,200, up to $1,500 if you get the 256 gigs of storage, or the 512 gigabytes of storage, are the ones that are losing, because that is a outrageous amount of money to pay for a device whenever you're not really getting a tangible benefit other than just the resolution. So don't let that be a hang up for you. And this, it's still got the 7 megapixel selfie camera. It's got the 12 megapixel camera on the back. It records, it does 1080p, 2160p, 60 frames per second, HDR. HDR is great. The haptic feedback is good. It doesn't have Force Touch on it, but it does have a modified version where it's kind of like the push and hold on Android. It's very similar to Force Touch, it's just a little bit different, but it works perfectly fine. You've got the LCD screen, 79% screen to body ratio. You can get it in 64 gigs, which is perfectly fine. I opt for the 64 gigs and pay the $1.99 to have the extra cloud storage for another 50 gigabytes. So I'd rather pay that than pay the extra $100 to bump up to the 128, or the 200 or so bucks to bump up to the 256. Everything on it works perfectly fine. Of course, one hang up I do have is, why, Apple, you take away the headphone jack, but then you make me use a dongle, but you don't provide the dongle with it, and then you give me a slow charger for a phone that supports quick charging. So I wouldn't care so much if it were $300 or $400 or $500 phone, but when you're talking $750 phones up to $1,100, $1,200 phones, and you can't even give me a quick charger, that's not cool. And the whole dongle thing is, just throw it in there. It's like 10 bucks. It probably costs them 47 cents to make it, so that's kind of annoying. Other gripes and complaints, I don't like how raised up the camera is. It's annoying, especially if you're not using a case. It kind of doesn't sit right. It sits up higher than the rest of the phone on that edge, and if you have it on like a flat surface, it can kind of wobble around a little bit. See, you press on the side, because it's not balanced. It's not all touching, not all four corners are touching the surface at the same time. The colors are great. Yeah, I mean, it's really about it. Mostly thoughts and impressions. I'm a big fan of it. I like it. It took me some prodding to get to the point where I ended up with this phone, and yeah, I kind of always wanted it from the get-go, because one, I'm a completionist. Two, I have to get the new phones when they come out. I review products for them, and you know, out the gate, I got the 10s Max versus the 10s because it was the biggest one, the biggest, best, brightest, brand new one, and I don't really regret that decision. And this came out, you know, like a month or two later, and I'm perfectly happy with this one. So if you're on the fence about getting it, don't be. I think you'll be very happy with it. It's a good device. It's solid. It checks all the boxes, and it performs so well. So yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. This is the iPhone XR, or the XR, whichever you want to call it. As always, if you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comment section. I will get back with you. I'll answer whatever I can, or I can do some further investigation in the phone if you have any questions on performance or how it works or any of those issues. So there's that, and thanks for tuning in, guys. Hit the subscribe button with the little bell so you get the latest notifications for my stuff, and I'll see you guys next time.